Love, live, life. Life can be glorious and hideous. Stick your feet to the ground, but don't think you are counted out. Don't let the wind pull you and tear you apart. Let yourself live freely and love, and you'll be happy. No limits. Just keep on.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another Iron Will podcast with me, Shane Warner, and
John Chase.
So what this podcast is all about is we are trying to get stories from people that have been through a traumatic experience in their lives and came out a different person.
Yeah, they have all created an iron will. So what is an iron will? A burning determination that cannot be stopped or hindered by anything, willing to do anything to get a desired outcome, extremely resilient. So what we like to say is just keep punching.
Yeah. So sit back and relax, and we're going to start the show. And today we have Alex and TyAnne Crook on the podcast with us, and I'm going to just let Alex introduce himself and tell you a little bit about him.
I'm Alex. He already said that, but I like a lot of things, like the outdoors. It's always great out in nature. Yeah, that's all I have.
What else do you like to do?
I like mountain biking.
Okay.
I like that, even though I've never actually mountain biked in the mountain.
And can you tell a little bit about your brain injury? The stuff that you remember.
I remember trying to swing my leg over, like, the side of the escalator, slipping, and everything going black.
So you remember the whole thing?
Actually.
Yeah.
Like, not everything, just falling.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Do you remember about like anything from being in the hospital and stuff like that?
I remember the alligator clip. Worst experience of my life.
I think I had that.
Yeah. Huge pair of tweezers. I had a huge black eye, big pair of tweezers. The doctor shoved it into my eye and forced it open.
Oh, man.
Super painful.
Yeah.
Don't want to go through
because
that again.
you had a swollen eye.
Yeah, really
remember
big
on the
eye.
podcast before? Yeah, you shared with us that it was like totally like stuck. Yeah. Wow.
Oh.
it brings up emotions.
Yeah.
It brings up some feelings there. Yeah, for sure.
And anything else?
No.
Do you remember like going to physical therapy or occupational therapy or?
I remember after I got out of the hospital, there was a lot of that. I mean, it was not bad. I liked it.
Yeah.
Like not liked it. Just,
Well,
yeah.
You like getting better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yep.
That's good.
Anything else you want to share?
No, not off the top of my head, no.
Okay.
Okay.
And now we're going to talk to TyAnne, and we had TyAnne on an episode before this with Mandy. So you already know a little bit about TyAnne, but I'm just going to let her share her story a little bit more.
So I'm Alex's mom, and happy to be so. About 7.5, almost 8 years ago, Alex took a header off of an escalator. He had a skull fracture and multiple brain bleeds. And so when I looked at him, he was unconscious on the floor. And at the time, as hard as it might be to believe, I did not have a cell phone.
Yeah.
And a very nice bystander called 911. They took us in an ambulance to the hospital, and CT scans and all of the other fun things that they do. And they transported us to a different hospital for observation and all of the other fun things that Alex just mentioned, that lovely alligator clip.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, as a mom, it's when your child looks at you and you're supposed to be able to fix everything for them. And they are Alex was never much of a crier. He, as a kid, he was kind of my tough it out kid, and he could handle anything and he could figure out anything. He just needed a little bit of time to do it. And when he just looks at you and his face says, "Why are you letting them do this to me?"
Yeah, that's hard.
But we ended up discharged from the hospital, and I think always in the back of my mind somewhere, and I maybe even now to today, I sometimes think, oh, well, life will just go back to normal. It'll go back to the way that it was before.
Yeah.
And it hasn't. But especially in the very, very beginning, I always thought, I was like, oh, they said that, oh, give it a couple of days and,
Right.
it'll be fine. And then it wasn't. And it still wasn't. And then it wasn't even for longer.
Yeah.
Sure.
And they moved him into primary children's hospital, right?
Yeah. So initially they took us to Riverton Hospital, and I don't know what the process was, but the doctor that was there, by the time we were there at Riverton Hospital for a little while, he had finally regained consciousness.
Yeah.
In all the ways that as a mom, it seems like are important. He was reasonable.
Yeah.
He didn't seem to have any other, really catastrophic injuries. So you think you're in good shape.
Yeah.
Right.
And the doctor walked in and said, "Well, we're gonna send you up to Salt Lake." And I don't know. I can't imagine the look on my face. Probably looked really ridiculous. Like, why?
Yeah.
Like, we're fine.
Yeah.
And they loaded us in the back of an ambulance, and we arrived at Salt Lake, the Salt Lake campus for primary children's. And then there's this flurry of activity and all these doctors and nurses all around. And no one explains anything to you. It's just people moving around all the time and asking you questions all the time. And because you have, I don't even know how many people, they ask you over and over and over again what happened. And you're saying this thing that you don't want to say, you don't want to relive, you don't want to even acknowledge has happened. And you have to say it over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And
that's a psychological effect on the caregiver.
I'm not saying this because I'm a caregiver, but I think if you understand what a caregiver has to do and the things that they go through, if you know a caregiver, go give them a hug.
Yeah.
They need it.
Sure.
They're not okay.
Yeah. So we kind of talked about like perspective a little bit before the podcast, and how, like, if you have the right perspective, it changes your whole outlook on the situation,
Yeah.
So can you kind of talk a little bit about that?
Well, the conversation started with fate and destiny.
Yeah. Yeah.
And neither of us is real sure if we really believe in it or not.
I'm like on the fence.
Yeah. So every once in a while I see something that makes me think, yeah, I probably do believe in it. And then sometimes I think, no, I definitely don't. But when you're born, you are born this little person. And when you leave this life, you're not supposed to be the same person.
Yeah.
You're supposed to grow. You're supposed to develop.
Right.
You're supposed to change. There are things that you need to learn. I mean, obviously, when you're a baby, it's learning to roll over, sit up, crawl, walk.
Sure.
But then you have these experiences that change your perspective. You have these paradigm shifts. These, you learn from other people. You have examples that change how you think and how you see things. And I have a really, really hard time saying brain injury is a blessing, brain injury is a gift, because I don't really feel that way.
Sure.
I don't know. I feel like it can be a blessing, and in the way that you have so much more opportunity to grow from a brain injury than like anything. Well, I'm sure other traumatic experiences do the same thing for you, but since I had a brain injury, I only know about the brain injury stuff. You can grow, and you can make yourself a stronger person.
So, Shane, are you saying that if you didn't go through this brain injury that you went through, you probably wouldn't be
Here?
here?
Yeah.
Well, of course you wouldn't be here, right
Yeah.
here, right now. but you wouldn't be the same person.
No.
Is that what you're saying? Like your character wouldn't have
Yes.
changed the way
Yes.
that it did. So that event and all the other things that happened because of that event has built a character in you that now you value.
Yes.
And now you can see the blessing that it has brought. So my understanding of these kinds of things is it is all about your perspective, because he could have, and TyAnne, as a mom, you could have turned really bitter
Yeah.
about it, and you could literally live the rest of your life saying why
Well,
This
you
happened to
could
me.
play
This
the
could be-
blame game.
You could
Very
be
easily,
You
yes.
can either be a victim of your circumstance, or you can be a warrior with purpose.
Yep.
Right? You can choose to be the warrior. You can choose to have an iron will. You can choose to be that person that's going to overcome
Yeah.
what has happened to you by developing a new
And
perspective.
I was talking to TyAnne about this. Like, as soon as I got injured, I felt like I had two choices to either give up or keep fighting.
Yeah.
And that's like, and that mindset is so valuable.
Well, and understanding you have a choice. It doesn't matter what the situation is.
Yeah.
You always have. You can roll over and die. You can give up. You can be bitter, or you can say, you know what? I'm going to learn from this. I'm going to do something amazing with whatever it is that I've been given.
So for the first question, it doesn't mean that so you're saying you don't have to be grateful for it. Like, you don't have to be like, I'm so thankful
Yeah.
that this happened. But because you're
that
choosing,
makes sense.
Yeah, but because you're choosing to be like, well, I'm still going to grow from this because it happened. It happened. You can't change that part of it. Doesn't mean you have to be happy that it happened, but you can still be grateful for all the opportunities that have happened afterwards.
I
Absolutely.
think that's the best way to look at it. Like, be grateful for the opportunities that your brain injury has given you.
Well, and there are many things that I've learned that I would not have without the vehicle of brain injury and the rehab process. And people that know me really well, that have known me the best for the longest, they see some of the ways that I'm different. Hopefully, I'm better for it.
Yeah.
There are probably ways I'm not. That, everyone grows and changes, and sometimes there are good things and sometimes there are bad things. But I've learned a patience and a resilience. I've learned to rely on other people. There's a lot of faith that goes into it. So many other things that I can't think of right this second.
Sometimes you just gotta make or let a football player make you a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That was from our last podcast.
Yeah. He said sometimes you have to let a football player. Yeah, that's great. We're going to bring that in. But I like that, because you have the perspective of the mother, right? The one that has had a different type of patience, a different type of resilience than what let's say your son or Shane has going through the actual injury themselves. But what that has brought to you is, as you've learned it, you're now showing others and teaching others and have a place for people to go to. Like, that brings it to a higher level.
Yeah.
That brings it to like, you're giving back. And I love that.
Yeah.
I love that that's what you do.
That was never the goal. Like,
Right.
If none of this had happened, there would never have been a need. I would never have known that there was a need.
Sure.
And Shane actually asked me, he said, well, what motivated you to do this? And I said, I was never motivated to do this. I don't know what level of desperation this is not what I do. I'm a mom first and foremost. I was happy to do carpools and school parties and, run kids the shuttle to practice and things like that. I was always happy to do those things. I never signed up for, like, when someone says, oh, you run this nonprofit, like, that's so great. And it is, but I feel like I dumped myself, because I did it by a choice. I dumped myself in the deep end.
Yep.
What on earth was I thinking?
Yeah.
This is not what I do.
Well, that's sometimes what you got to do to figure stuff out. Like, just dive right in.
It kind of came as necessity.
Yeah.
Like, you're trying to solve solutions to problems that were coming up that you needed to figure out, and you realize